Kamina from Gurren Lagann vs Shanks from One Piece, Guts from Berserk vs Jotaro from Jojo's Bizarre Adventure, Mustang from Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood vs Gilgamesh from the Fate franchise, and Yujiro Hanma from Baki vs Onizuka from Great Teacher Onizuka. There are a ton of badass characters out there, but in the end, there can only be one. In today's video, we will be pitting these mad lads against one another and finding out who is the most badass. If you guys don't see your pick for the most badass character in this video, then leave your suggestions in the comments below, as I'll likely make another one. Or maybe check out my first badass bracket video on the same topic, or the one I did on badass old guys. Links will be down below. But anyway, in the first round, we have Kamina versus Shanks. However, before we begin, today's video is sponsored by Black Desert Online, which is a super fast-paced and fun MMORPG with a beautifully designed world. My favorite thing about this game is the real-time skill-based combat, and you can do everything from fighting huge badass bosses to going fishing, all either solo or with other people online. This game has 16 classes to choose from, with amazing character customization, and their newest addition is the Shy class, who is pretty cute, not gonna lie. Because she is so small, she is fast and nimble when evading and attacking enemies. However, she excels at supporting and protecting her allies. You can play this game by clicking the link down below, which gives you access to a 7-day free trial. Not only would you be getting a fun game for free, but you would be supporting my channel in the process, and I really do appreciate it. The link is down below, but on that note, let's jump back into Kamina versus Shanks. Kamina is the big brother / mentor of Simone in Gurren Lagann, and he is one of the most iconic anime characters of all time. If you consider piloting giant mechs that fuse with other giant mechs to create gigantic drills that run right through your opponents, or throw a razor-sharp pair of sunglasses like a boomerang to be badass, well, Kamina has you covered. Of course, if you want things on a more human level, he is also a katana-wielding inspiration to the series' protagonist, who motivates him to push through his limits and pierce the heavens. He radiated charisma and confidence every time he was on screen. Even when he was straight up killed in battle, he rises from the dead to give one last emotional push to Simone. He knocks some sense into his protege, he merges Gurren Lagann one more time, eliminates about a dozen riffraff, and goes on to put all of his remaining energy into an attack that opens the door for humanity to finally overtake the Beastmen. Kamina was only in the series for a few episodes, however the impact he had is felt through the whole series, and it's hard to think of him as anything less than an absolute badass. Oh, and he was absolutely smashing Yoko, which is just about any young weeb's wet dream. On to Shanks though. Shanks is a Yonko, and one of the strongest ones at that. And if that wasn't enough, he was a swordsman who could rival Hawkeye Mihawk, the strongest swordsman in the world. Well, until he lost his arm, saving Luffy from a Sea King. And I'll add that even without his arm, he is one of the strongest characters in the series. But we all know the story of Shanks losing his arm, so to really understand the badassery that is Shanks, let's look at 3 specific scenes. Firstly, let's talk about Shanks on Whitebeard's ship. Shanks climbs onto the Moby Dick, and just the simple act of him walking, several of the crewmates begin passing out. The 2 Yonko have some sake, as Shanks explains the scar across his eye. When Whitebeard asks about his missing arm, Shanks just blows it off as no big deal, and simply just a bet he is taking on the next generation. Imagine being so chill about losing an arm. Also, look at the size of his body compared to Whitebeard, and the quantity of alcohol they are drinking. Anyways, Shanks tells Whitebeard to call Ace back, as he is no match for Blackbeard. And this upsets Whitebeard, who I might add is the strongest man in the world. He attacks Shanks, and he is easily stopped by the one-armed pirate. Not only that, but the energy produced is so powerful that the clouds part and lightning sparks. We also have his appearance at Marineford after the War of the Best. The Marines were taking on Whitebeard's crew and finally killed the Yonko himself. They are winning, and it isn't just by a little bit. Aokiji, Kizaru, and Akainu are only involved in small skirmishes, not to mention the warlords who are mostly just standing around at this point. The Marines were way ahead if you ask me. But then the red-haired pirates roll up and basically demand the end of the war. Despite taking out the world's strongest man only moments earlier, as soon as Shanks walks in, he is able to call an end to this battle. No questions asked. That's how respected and feared Shanks is in this world. And finally, we have his journey to Mary Joa, or the Gurusei are. Keep in mind that these are the head of the Marines and the world government, so they should hate pirates, let alone the Yonko. And despite this, he has literally no issue walking into their headquarters and demanding to talk to them and warn them about Blackbeard. So yeah, Shanks is a beast. Be it Sea Kings, Yonko, the whole of Marines, or even the leaders of the world, nothing stands up to Shanks, which is why he will be advancing to the next round. It's crazy how a character with so little screen time has earned the respect of the entire One Piece community and is viewed to be one of the coolest and most badass characters within the series. And I think his lack of screen time is part of the reason. There is a mystery to Shanks. How is this one-armed, seemingly normal pirate a Yonko, and one of the most influential at that? He's obviously a fucking badass, that's the only explanation. But anyway, on to the next matchup. Oh, and I forgot to add that I did a poll over on Twitter, my link's down below as well if you want to vote in a future bracket, but for this matchup this time around, you guys seem to agree with me. I'm telling you, Shanks may not have gotten the most screen time, but whenever he does something, the entire One Piece community blows up, and I knew you guys would vote for our man Shanks. Guts versus Jotaro. Now, the first round was all about badasses who are considered badass because of how cool they are, but Guts is a badass because of how insanely strong and resilient he is. A lot goes down in the world of Berserk, from demons to rape to eclipses. This series has just about everything you would want to avoid in your day-to-day life. However, one man faces it all head on. Guts, the Black Swordsman, constantly conquers every enemy in his way. To do this, he uses a sword that looks like Clouds and Sephora's had a baby. It's insanely long and insanely heavy. That's what she said. He can also rely on his cannon arm if all else fails, but there are two things that truly make him a badass. Firstly, he never gives up. It doesn't matter if he's bleeding out, cut, bruised, or even beaten down. Guts will get up. If his friends are killed, or if they betray him, or if the love of his life forgets who he is, Guts will get up. If you tried to come up with the most terrible life story you could imagine, his would be way worse. It isn't that you can't imagine the horrors that he has lived through, it is that they are way beyond imagining. But possibly the thing that makes him the most badass is that he's human. Guts is just a guy. In a world full of demons and gods and skeletal night kings, Guts is just a normal human who rises to the occasion and pushes through all of them. And his opponent this round is Jotaro. There are many Jojos and they all have something special about them. Jonathan was a gentleman, Joseph was the best, Josuke had the best hair, and Giorno was probably the smartest. But when it comes down to being the most badass, it has to go to the walking mountain of a 15-year-old, Jotaro. If you have seen the series, you know that Jotaro is always calm and collected. He is 2 steps ahead of his opponents, and despite having a pretty straightforward stand that just punches things, he constantly outthinks and outdoes his opponents. For example, his battle playing poker, where brute force was completely useless. He used his head to scare his opponent into submission. And don't even get me started on his battle against Dio. However, there is one glaring issue when it comes to Jotaro. The dude is a dick to his mom, and that isn't very badass of him at all. That's how you know he isn't a true gamer. And that is how you know he isn't moving forward. I mean, I could talk about the time Guts, a normal human, fought 100 guys at once, or the time he cut off his own arm. Which I will, but I'll have to save it for a future round. Jotaro is definitely a badass. I mean, do you guys remember the time he got turned into a kid again, and was still more badass than his opponent and kicked his ass? But Guts just hasn't beat this time around. For the second poll, more of you guys voted for Guts, so we are on the same page. So let's move on to Mustang versus Gilgamesh. Mustang versus Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh is the overly confident king of the ancient times, to whom every treasure in the world belongs to. When it comes to battles, Gilgamesh is a monster. He can launch blades and weapons from all around him towards his opponents and have them rain down on anyone he faces. And if that wasn't enough, he has jets, lasers, planes, tanks, literally anything you could think of, he has available to him. In the whole series, he almost never loses a battle, and the only time he really does is when he becomes too full of himself and underestimates his opponent. Which, to be fair, if you had a 100% win streak, unlimited access to every weapon and piece of tech in history, and hair that drops every female's panties in a 20-mile radius, then you would probably be pretty confident in yourself as well. And even if he only has access to one sword, Ea, this sword can straight up cut the world to pieces. This man is a monster with a truly monstrous arsenal. And his opponent today might not have an infinite supply of weapons, however, all he really needs to assert his dominance is a glove. Roy Mustang is the flame alchemist, and in a world full of people who can manipulate matter and rearrange it, he stands as one of the most destructive. With the snap of his fingers, Roy creates a spark. Then he changes the formation of the air around him to use the oxygen as fuel to cause massive bursts of fire and explosions anywhere in his range. The whole series shows him to be cocky and confident, but he never really seems to be full of himself. It all seems justified, and that is proven when he comes across his best friend's killer. The homunculus Envy is taunting Roy about the face Maze made when he was dying. When you hear a snap, as a darting light of fire flashes into Envy's mouth as Roy sets her tongue on fire. He says he wonders what it would feel like to have liquids in your eyes boiling as you hear another snap. Over and over, the homunculus regenerates. However, with each regeneration, we hear another snap, as the hottest alchemist in Amestris gives this monster the coldest stare you have ever seen. And just reading the script, I have fucking goosebumps. And don't misunderstand, Envy isn't weak. She's a pretty strong opponent, and Mustang has literally zero issue making it seem like she's defenseless. And honestly, to this barrage of flames, she really is. And it is exactly this moment of dominance that makes Mustang more of a badass than Gilgamesh. There are a few more moments that I would want to mention regarding Mustang, but with this scene alone, he easily wins this round. For the third poll, you guys voted for Mustang. Wow, 3 in a row? The Shinpaku Alliance is on the same wavelength today? Clearly you guys are all epic gamers as well. And in the final matchup of round 1, we have Yujiro Hanma from Baki the Grappler versus the greatest teacher, Onizuka. Yujiro is the main antagonist of the series and also the protagonist's father. I know we've never seen that one before. However, he is by far the strongest character in the series. He's a freelance assassin that is known worldwide as the strongest creature on Earth. He's regularly said to have the strength and impact of an entire army. In fact, when he was only 16, he and his father were able to defeat the American military by themselves during the Vietnam War. But hey, maybe stopping an army isn't enough for you. Let's go over a few other things he's done. Yujiro once pushed back 100 riot police. He stopped an earthquake by punching the ground. He can create a crater in a concrete wall by tapping on it. He took down an elephant that tanks couldn't damage. He can crush coal past the point of diamonds and turn it straight to dust. He is said to be able to hit with the force of a nuke. His muscles are said to be so durable that a samurai sword will break across them. He can literally walk through bulletproof glass. He can flex, and the energy he produces is so immense that skyscrapers nearby will collapse. I'm literally laughing, this is how funny this is getting. This is so ridiculous. He can fall off a 50-story building and not take damage. This dude is basically a walking personification of all the Chuck Norris memes rolled together. It's as though they took a normal world with relatively normal fighters and threw someone from Dragon Ball within the mix. And his opponent today is a teacher. Onizuka was a member of Shonen's strongest duo. However, he eventually decided to be a teacher. The only issue is that he's extremely vulgar, perverted, and a virgin. He's basically a 13-year-old boy in a grown man's body. That being said, when it comes to teaching, he's pretty great. Growing up, he had terrible teachers that didn't believe in him, and he believed that a dream teacher should make their students a priority. And when it's his chance to live up to that, he passes with flying colors. He helps his students and earns their friendship by perseverance, determination, and hard work. And all these students are better off for knowing this man-child delinquent. He constantly fights against teacher norms, no matter the consequences, and always does so with his students in mind. However, as much as I love Onizuka, and GTO is one of my favorite animes of all time, which you should all watch, he just can't compare to the demon that is Yujiro. And in the fourth poll, it seems more of you guys voted for Onizuka, which really surprised me. I'm proud that you guys like Onizuka and have watched GTO, because it's one of my favorite and everyone should watch it. But I really thought Baki was going to win this one. But at the end of the day, Yujiro Hanma will advance to the next round, but I do appreciate your vote. Both of these are two absolute badasses in every sense of the word, but when it comes down to choosing one over the other, it's clear cut for me. On to the top 4. We have Shanks versus Guts. Shanks is without a doubt one of the greatest pirates of all time, and has earned respect worldwide. But Guts conquers everything in front of him, despite literally being on a level below everyone who attacks him. Shanks fights on an even level with other humans, but Guts fights against monsters, demons, devils, and gods, and I think that just puts him a cut above the rest. And our respect for Shanks is based on the respect and fear we see everyone else show him. We haven't actually seen him in action, and although that's part of his charm, I feel like I need more from him to have him advance any further, especially against Guts. And I really can't wait for Oda to show us more of Shanks. Every time he's on screen, it's amazing. But for the time being, Guts advances to the finals. And when we look at Mustang versus Yujiro, it's very similar. Both are great, and Mustang is easily one of the most badass characters in FMA. But, well, do I have to go through that list again? Yujiro is a giant stepping on ants in his own world. There's only a small handful of characters who can even stand up to him, and one of them straight up pulled an Estarossa and made him hurt himself. No wonder he felt pain for the first time, as would be expected of his own attacks. As great as Mustang is, they just don't compare. And I know I'm probably upsetting a lot of Mustang fanboys right now. I mean, I'm a Mustang fanboy and I'm upset, but I just can't not give it to Yujiro. However, I do want to give a shout out to Mustang vs. Lust as well, because I feel like everyone mainly praises him versus Envy only. This dude sealed himself with fire, shows up with a lighter, and uses it to kill Lust over and over and over again until she finally dies. And although he won't be advancing, he is worthy of praise and definitely deserves to be here. But do you want to know how Yujiro first met his wife? He showed up to the after party of her own wedding, where there was a fight for entertainment. He killed the fighters, later killed the husband, and the wife fell in love with him. So he walked in, killed everyone, and stole his girl. This dude is a mad lad, and every time he is on screen, you can almost feel his presence. And that brings us to the final round. Yujiro Hanma versus Guts. These guys are legends. Yujiro might as well be a force of nature, while Guts can withstand anything nature throws against him. This is probably the hardest round of the bracket, but if I had to choose one, I think I might have to give it to Guts. While yes, Yujiro is actually insane, Guts isn't. Yujiro is a titan who fights those who are weaker than him. He doesn't struggle, he doesn't fear. But Guts does. Guts fights things much bigger and stronger than him on a daily basis. He is constantly being hunted as he is marked to die, but he simply doesn't allow fate to control him. He gets up and keeps walking as he slices down anything and anyone in his path. Yujiro is nearly invincible, which is cool, but Guts was dragged to the pits of hell and branded as a sacrifice, and then he clawed his way back up just so he could spit in the face of the fate that they forced upon him. And that is why Guts is the most badass character in this bracket. I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Black Desert Online for sponsoring this video. The link is down below. Thank you everyone for watching. I do hope you enjoyed. A huge thank you to everyone who supports me on Patreon. Thank you to Starry Nick, Beck, A17FFDP, The Anime Dude, Shoot Alpha, Chastity White, Thought Destroyer, Make Manga, Nothing But a Fan, and my highest current patron, Viva the Loser. Thanks, guys. And if you want to consider supporting me on Patreon, I would really appreciate it. We're currently at $45 a month, and if I could get to $200 a month, $250 a month, it would really help me out and help me to pay editors consistently. That way I could keep up this level of quality and quantity. And a huge thank you to my first sponsor, Too Spooky. But just like that, I will see you guys all next time, dudes. Shin Paku. El Sai Kangaroo.